Hi, I'm Ernesto Cervini. I'm a Canadian drummer and composer from Toronto, Ontario. Growing up, I was exposed to all kinds of music, from jazz to pop, classical music to music theater. My influences were super varied. My siblings and I made music together all the time, and we were part of a band now known as the Toronto All-Star Big Band. Our next guest is a Canadian Grammy Award-winning baritone who has established himself as one of the most sought-after, accomplished singers of his generation, enthralling audiences around the world. At just 35, his career spans the past decade singing in major opera companies and orchestras throughout Europe, the United States, and Canada. Please welcome Elliot Madore. It's such a pleasure to see you. I don't remember the last time we saw each other.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I've got a few more gray hairs.
Me too.
No, I don't think you have any gray hairs.
The camera's doing a good job
No. It's been a while.
Well, first off, congratulations on all your success. It's been kind of amazing to watch your journey from afar, just through, social media and just seeing things. I know Elliot through the Toronto All-Star Big Band, and we met. Were you 17 or 8? How old were you? Do you remember?
I think I was maybe, 15 or 16, something like that.
We were that young. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, yeah.
Even back then, you had such a stunning voice. So it's been so exciting to see your success. So what I wanted to talk to you today about is kind of your journey through music as a Canadian, how it started eventually to now, but even more so the moment where you felt like you were established as a professional musician.
I was very fortunate growing up in Toronto. There was a lot of opportunities for a young man who was really interested in music, and for whatever reason, I was really drawn to classical music. I can't tell you why. I just was.
Well, it's quite beautiful.
It is quite beautiful.
It's pretty amazing music.
That is true. That is true. Although I will say it was a little bit bizarre being, like a 10-year-old walking around with a Walkman listening to, Brahms Symphony No. 2 or something. So a little bit weird.
Even at that age, you were.
Yeah. I was really drawn to it, and my family, they were incredibly supportive, and my mother, she put me in a ton of different choirs, Choirs Ontario. I was in the Etobicoke Youth Choir, High Park Choir, and so I did sort of made the rounds of all the different choirs in Toronto, and so I had a wonderful education, musical education that way. So that was really a wonderful experience for me. And I would say and I'm sure you felt this too, being especially being so young and so taken with music, it was almost like I would have like these spiritual experiences, singing in a choir and hearing the melding of voices coming together. It was really a magical experience, and even to this day, some of the most profound musical experiences I had and the memories that I have are from that time, singing in choirs in Toronto. So that was really, really a wonderful experience. And then going into high school, I went to Etobicoke School of the Arts, which was wonderful, and I was able to sing in different musicals while I was there. I did Les Mis and Jean Valjean, did that whole thing, and that was a great experience. I love that, and so again, just being able to be a part of an ensemble there, so that was wonderful. And you mentioned it, but the Toronto All-Star Big Band, doing that and being able to be a part of that professional environment was amazing. I mean, just incredible. And I remember to this day, we had those that kind of summer sort of boot camp kind of thing. Do you remember that?
Of course.
And so, we'd be rehearsing like whatever it was every day or something like that during the summer. And just doing that every day and learning how to harmonize and to hear that harmony and to learn how to be collaborative in that way. It really in all honesty, set the foundation for what I'm able to do today. And so it was really that was a truly wonderful experience for me. And so I feel very fortunate to have grown up in Toronto and in a wonderful musical environment.
What instrument did you start on?
Singing, just my voice. I didn't really learn an instrument until I was about maybe 10 or 11, and I started playing the cello. That was the first thing that I started playing after I started singing. So I played the cello for a while, and then after that I taught myself how to play the piano. Not well, but pretty decent. Not as good as
Right.
you, of course, but pretty good.
Okay, yeah.
I did some RCM exams and passed them. So
That's great.
yeah. So that was those were the two instruments that I learned. Yeah.
It's funny because when you said, that you're walking around as a 10-year-old listening to Brahms, I picture you as like a 6-year-old doing piano lessons. So so it's interesting to me that you discovered this music through singing and
Yeah.
like first.
Yeah,
And-
that's actually a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting. And perhaps it has something to do with my family not being so super musical or musical at all. My family they're not musical.
Really?
No, none of them. None of them are. And so it was, I was an outlier in the family. And so I think for them, they were also discovering with me, this musical journey and where to put me. And I loved to sing. I could always do that. And I knew at a young age that I had a decent voice and that I enjoyed performing. And so that was something that I just kind of did. And I don't think at that age I don't think I equated, that learning an instrument would be beneficial. I don't think I knew that, that didn't happen until later, but yeah, that's a really, really good point. It was a bit of a strange journey in that sense.
So when you started singing, were you taking private lessons or was it just choir based?
It was choir based, and then I had a few teachers, and I was very fortunate to find a really incredible teacher, and she really put me on the right path, and that is Lois McDonald. She actually just received the Order of Canada this year. So she had a wonderful operatic career, and she sang in England for many years at the ENO. And she was in Toronto, and she was teaching at the A-sharp School of Music. And that was sort of just down the road from where we lived. And I went there with my mother, and they suggested that I study with Lois. And of course, we didn't know that she had this incredible career and had this vast amount of knowledge and was like this super famous opera singer. And so that was just a real blessing. And I don't know how that happened, but I just got very, very lucky. And she, I think more than anything, she introduced me to the world of opera. I had always loved classical music, but it was her who really showed me all of the possibilities of opera. And I think also more specifically, she really developed a love of words and a love of language that was really amazing. And she was wonderful in that way. So, I studied with her basically through the end of high school. And she suggested that I audition in Curtis, and so she was really instrumental in my development as a young singer.
It's so incredible that was just happenstance. Did you have siblings?
Yes, yeah. I have a brother, much younger than me, who lives in Toronto still. Yeah.
And no one in your family does anything musical?
No, no, no.
I always find it so fascinating to hear other people's stories. And it reminds me that it doesn't all have to be done one way. Everyone has their own journey and they can be similar, but they can also be so drastically different. And yet, if music captures you and gets a hold of you, then sometimes it doesn't matter how you get there. It's like once you get the bug.
I think just as like a sort of side note, I'm teaching at University of Cincinnati now. I see a lot of singers who don't come from musical families but find their way to music somehow. And I wonder, I just wonder if that's if there's a reason for that. I'm not quite sure. But I see that very often, where it's just sort of this ability to sing happens, and then the love of music sort of follows.
So you went to Etobicoke School of the Arts.
Yep.
And you're still studying with your private
Close,
teacher.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then she's encouraged you to audition for Curtis. So then how was that process? Did you audition to a bunch of different schools, and what made you pick Curtis?
I had decided to take an extra year of high school at that time. I also had a wonderful teacher at Etobicoke School of the Arts, Mr. Paul Akins. And he was just absolutely incredible. And he went on the Curtis website, and he saw that that you could do a late application, or given a late application. And so that's what I did. I gave in a late application, and they accepted me to audition for Curtis. And I went there, drove 9 hours with my family, and auditioned, and then a few months later, I found out that I'd been accepted, and so that was probably one of the best days of my life when I found out that I was accepted there, that was a really wonderful experience going to school at Curtis.
Yeah. And so was your experience at all similar to mine, where it was just like, whoa, this is intense?
Exactly. And I think it was also different, for the people who don't know, Curtis Institute of Music is one of the smallest, sort of most concentrated conservatories. I think there's 120 students for all, combined.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
In the school.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's very, very small. And the building itself is right next to this beautiful park in central Philadelphia called Rittenhouse Square. And it's very old and very elegant and very beautiful. And I think there was 20 singers total between undergrad and masters. And
Wow.
And so it was a very small class. And one of the wonderful things about Curtis that I loved, and that I think served me so well, was that they were very big on experiential learning. So effectively, they did something like, I think 4 or 5 operas a year, and between 20 singers, right? And
Yeah.
so
I'm doing that math. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. And so, I was 18 or 17 or something. And that first year I was the speaker in the Magic Flute, and I sang Sid and Albert Herring. And, with a real operatic production with an orchestra. And I was 18, and so you grow up very quickly. And, admittedly, it's not for everybody. I mean, some singers sink and some singers swim. It's a very difficult thing to just kind of do it. But I really think, you can practice all day long, but until you get into that position of actually doing the thing in a pressurized environment, you're not really gonna learn. You know what I mean?
Right. No, of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't learn to perform without performing. It's
Exactly.
You can't you have to
Exactly.
do it. Pardon my ignorance a little bit, because obviously I'm not. I studied classical music for a long time, but I was never. I never studied opera besides just the history and all that stuff. But when you're performing, you're also acting. Like
Oh yeah.
You're an actor, right?
Oh
That's
my
like
goodness, yeah.
yeah, that's a big part of
100%.
it, and yet it's like the
Absolutely.
focus is music to start. You learn how to, but then you have to be able to like portray a character. You're
Yes. It's
right.
it's incredibly demanding. And I think that, the difficult thing about operatic singing is that you're effectively juggling, 4 to 5 things at any given moment consistently throughout the night. You're dealing with staging, you're dealing with, making sure that you're in contact with the conductor to make sure that you're, in line with the orchestra and that's working seamlessly. You're singing in a different language, so you're translating, in your head, as you sing. Um, and then you're thinking about all of the technical issues that come with operatic singing, namely that we don't have a microphone. So we're effectively trying to project our voice into a 3,000 seat house over an orchestra and making sure that we're being heard. And then somehow, in the framework of all of that, we're trying to look human,
Right.
which, you know, is pretty difficult, right? So
I didn't expect you to say that. That's really funny.
yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough. So it's a lot of juggling, and it's a lot of takes a lot of focus, takes a lot of concentration. And that, just going back to what I said about experiential learning, that's really, I think my time at Curtis, learning how to juggle all of those things and feeling what that was like at a young age, I think, helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So okay, so you're at Curtis, and then that's a 4-year program.
Yeah, so that's a 4-year program, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So when you finished at 21 or 22,
Yep.
what was your next steps?
Yeah, so the next big thing for me was auditioning for the Metropolitan Opera competition. That was sort of the next kind of big breakthrough for me, and that competition, it's now, they changed the name now. It's called the Lafont competition, I think. But anyway, back then it was called the Metropolitan Opera competition, and effectively that's 3,000 singers or something audition for that competition, and there's many different regions, and then it goes to regionals, and then there's the semifinals, and then there's the semifinals that take place at the Met,
Yeah.
and then there's the grand finals that you get to sing with the orchestra, and there's something like 10 singers on stage, and they pick 5 winners, and
Wow.
so I went through that whole process, and I won.
Amazing.
So I was 22 at the time. So that was on the young side, to be winning that competition.
I would think
A
so.
lot of
Yeah.
things, yeah. So a lot of things kind of happened very quickly for me after that. So I signed with my agent at that time, and I also was accepted into the Metropolitan Opera Young Artist Program. So that was kind of the next big step for me, and then I moved to New York for I think 2 years to study in that program.
So that's amazing. So now you're at the Met in the Young Artist Program,
Yeah.
and so what's that like?
Again, it was a great experience. Firstly, and I think in a weird way, I was fortunate that I was on the younger side, because there was a lot of pressure, and every coaching and everything that they did, it was like it was an audition. Every single thing that you did was an audition. But I think I was on the naive side, and I think somehow I was able to bypass that, and so it didn't really register with me that it was kind of such a big deal. Of course, I knew that it was a big deal, but I didn't internalize it, I guess, in that sense. And so, we were working with, incredible singers who would come and be singing at the Met, and they would teach us. And, we had great coaches, and, we were working with James Levine. And so it was an amazing experience. And of course, being at the Met, it's this massive opera factory, and they sort of, they churn out opera after opera that is of the highest quality. And so you're sort of immersed in that, and you're going to these performances and rehearsals, and so you're seeing all of it up close. And so that was really eye-opening, and it was a beautiful experience. And of course, singing on the Met stage in my first production was also, that was a crazy experience. Yeah.
It didn't strain your relationship with the music and with performing, because I think that can happen to people, right? You can get,
I think, and this is hard to say, everybody's different, but if I were to imagine myself being older, and let's say being in my 30s and going through that again in that same situation, I would feel like there was a bit of a time crunch maybe, or that I had to sort of do something of significance to propel my career forward. So I think I would have felt that pressure much more. But being 22, I just kind of felt like I had all the time in the world.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, in a sense, you did. So what happened after that? Where was your next big move?
Yeah, so after that, I spent a summer in Salzburg. I was with a program called the Salzburg Young Artists Project. And that was a young artist program at the Salzburg Festival, which is this amazing operatic festival, and they put on amazing productions with amazing singers. And so there was a group of singers there who was a part of that, and the Zurich Opera House came through to hear us. We auditioned for them, and they offered me a contract. So that was my first, or actually it was my second international contract at that point. And so I was able to work in Zurich for 2 years, and I was part of the ensemble. And so what that means is basically you work with the Zurich Opera House, and you're there singing in every single production throughout the year. And so that's what I did. That was an amazing experience to be in Zurich, and to be in it's a different vibe in Europe, especially when it comes to opera. Yeah.
I would love to know, because as I was saying, this podcast, what I'm really trying to explore is kind of people's growth through music as Canadians, from the start up until like when they first felt like they had kind of made it as a professional musician. So when was that moment for you? When was that like, wow, I'm here?
That's a really great question. There was a moment that I had, and this was when I was singing on the Met stage, and it was my first role. It was a small role, but it was in an opera called Billy Budd, and the role that I was singing was called A Novice's Friend, and he has this really beautiful melodic line, and there I was singing on the stage, singing this beautiful music, and I felt at ease. And I think that was and that doesn't happen very often. To this day, that still doesn't happen very often. But, when I felt that moment on the Met stage with that orchestra, singing that music and being at ease and feeling comfortable, then I felt like at that time, okay, I'm in the zone. This is sort of what I'm meant to do, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. A couple more quick questions. I wanted to talk to you quickly about your heritage and your identity, and because you said you came from not a musical family, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your family and your kind of where you're
Sure.
from.
Yeah,
and
sure.
upbringing.
Well, sort of long story short, I've never met my father. My father is Black. I grew up with my mother and my grandparents. And so, I'm half Black, biracial. And so, and I just sort of had a very interesting upbringing in the sense that, I never really was able to connect with, that other part of me, because I'd never met my father. So that was in that sense, it was kind of an interesting upbringing, and actually, we created a new song cycle called Identity, which is for, ironically enough, jazz trio and baritone voice. So that's
Oh my gosh, amazing!
yeah. So we're working with a wonderful composer, Dinak Gujaratne, and it's really, really wonderful music. This sort of blends. He's Sri Lankan, part Sri Lankan, and so he has a lot of Eastern influences that he put in there. There's a lot of classical, obviously, influences in there, and of course, there's some straight jazz stuff. So it's a really cool kind of blend that we're working with. And so we were talking about kind of working outside of the box, and I guess maybe that's sort of my attempt to kind of get there a little bit.
Oh, that's really cool. So is this something that you're going to be recording or performing live?
So we made a film about it, and we recorded the first 5 songs.
Okay, I need to see. I gotta go find this. I'd love to see.
You can find that on my website.
Okay, great. I will.
There's a film about it, and I sort of talk about my childhood, and that's what the song cycle is about. It's about my basically talking about the theme of finding one's identity, and I sort of tell it through the lens of my childhood, as it were. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. I can't wait to check that out.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating about your childhood. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
I guess just another note about growing up in Toronto. Did you have any favorite Canadian bands when you were growing up?
I listened to so much classical music that I didn't I didn't really venture out too far into, listening to a ton of bands. I will say, my favorite singer of all time still is to this day is Canadian baritone, Gerald Finley. He is my idol, and, I was lucky enough to work with him on a few occasions. So, he gave me great advice when I was a younger singer, and to this day he's my absolute favorite singer. And so I did listen to a lot of Canadian operatic singers when I was younger, and John Vickers, incredible tenor, amazing singer. So yeah, I mean those I would say those two, John Vickers and Gerald Finley, were really my go-to Canadian singers that I listen to.
Sometimes they say don't meet your heroes, so I hope it was good to meet your hero.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Yeah.
Well, Elliot, thank you so much for doing this. It's really, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you and to hear all your stories, and thank you so much, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you so much. It's great to talk to you, Ernesto.